Hi everybody, it's Lori with Behavior Education at Spirit Keeper Animal Sanctuary, and last week I trained and fed all of my colubrids, and that's what you're going to see in this video for Tuesday, June 6, 2023. First up is my corn snake Vaccar larouche. I'm asking him to shift out of his primary habitat and onto an improvised station. And he does a fantastic job, and it is the very first time that he has ever seen this station. And Vaccar larouche is a corn snake that came from Silent Hills Reptiles. You're going to get to see 3 sessions with Vaccar larouche. I was feeding him fuzzy mice, and so he did 3 repetitions during just 1 session. And so repetition 2, he started to get away from me. He ate really quickly while I cleaned his enclosure, and he was taking off, so I just asked him to please come back. And I asked him again if he could please utilize the station, and he did. Even though he's never seen this before, he was doing really well interacting with this improvised station. So I get him back over the threshold of his enclosure, and I reinforce him for this. And then his 3rd repetition, I wanted to get him back into his enclosure. And so I thought it would be really easy to just target him the rest of the way off of this station and into his enclosure. And it didn't exactly go the way that I had planned. It was going really well. I mean, he's following the target. He's coming back into his enclosure. But I expected him to let go of the station, which is a holy roller ball that I just had anchored down with a Tech gullet. It's part of a saddle. But instead of just coming into his enclosure and moving into his enclosure, he came into his enclosure and still held on to the improvised station that I made, and he ends up pulling the entire station into his enclosure with him, which I guess really wasn't a big deal. It didn't seem to faze him. Nisha is another corn snake from Silent Hills Reptiles, and she's always really enthusiastic and lets me know that she wants her reinforcement sooner than I usually give it to her. But she's very confident about following the target and coming out, and she's not shy or anything. And next up is Tuvak. He is a corn snake from Port City Pet, Joe Phelan. Tuvak has not been that confident. Growing up, he's been quite shy, and he's learned to target within his enclosure extremely well. However, I still can't quite get him to target all the way out of his enclosure. And I wanted him to just target down onto his little ledge, which he sort of does, but he kind of launched himself at the target to get there, but I'll take what I can get. He's getting pretty big and good sized, and I really like the way he's looking. He just hasn't gained the confidence to come out of his enclosure. I think he has voluntarily come out of his enclosure exactly twice in the entire time that I've had him, which has been a few years. He was hatched in 2019, so I've had him for quite a while. But as far as interacting with him the way you see here, targeting him around his enclosure and just to the threshold and cleaning while he's eating, he is perfectly fine with all of that, and it's no problem. It's just that he doesn't want to leave his enclosure or go too far from his enclosure door, which is absolutely fine. That's his choice. Next, we have Rasalon. He's another corn snake, and he's from South Mountain Reptiles. He was ready and eager to come out before I was even ready, so he was already coming out of hiding when he saw me getting the training set up. As you see, he followed the target. He took his reinforcer. That was an easy training session, and again, he's just fine with me cleaning and changing water and things while he's eating. The snake that lives above him is Neutron, and he came from Port City Pet. He is deep in blue. He's a zombie, so I just checked on him, and that's it. Okay, this is my Escalapian snake. His name is Eleanor, and he's just sitting there between his hide and some of his bushy stuff. And this is a good training session for him. He's tongue flicking at the target, and he ever so slightly moves towards it. And then I reinforce him for that behavior. He is what I would call a shy snake. He hides a lot. He likes to stay hidden. and I just don't do much with him. But he will target out of hiding. He'll target out of the bushes. If I wait long enough and I'm very, very patient, he will move to the target further than I had him move there. And I can clean and I can change his water while he's eating, and it doesn't freak him out or anything. But he's another one that just doesn't care to come out of his enclosure. He's happy to stay in there, which I guess is good. It means that he's content with his habitat. And next we've got Stardust. You guys should be used to seeing her. She's another corn snake from Port City Pet, and she's like one of my number one snakes at shifting. She just does it without hesitation every single time I ask her to. And I've also targeted her out from underneath her enclosure one day when she got out and I wasn't ready and she was under her enclosure. This is Normal. He's a corn snake from Port City Pet, and he's targeting out of his hide and just over towards his water dish. I'm not asking him to come out today, but he will target out of his enclosure. He's a very confident snake, as opposed to Tuvak, who I got at the same time. Normal's always been very outgoing and confident, so I haven't had any issues if I need to get him out. Sargon, my Korean rat snake, was so quiet during this training session. I think he was just about to shed, so you're not seeing much of him. And next we've got one of my other corn snakes. This is Gary 7, and he had just shed, so he's targeting out of his hide, following the target over his log, and he's getting reinforced for that. I actually did 3 repetitions with him during this session, but I'm only showing you one just to save time on this video since I'm showing you all of my colubrids. Vaccar is another one of my corn snakes. She is also usually very exuberant. You're seeing that theme with these corn snakes and colubrids, that they're very enthusiastic about following that target and usually taking their reinforcement. They're a little bit wild for my liking. Especially this girl right here. This is Vashti. You guys will recognize her. She's our false water cobra. And I was not fast enough. I gave her a small adult rat, and she was finished swallowing it by the time that I got the lid zipped, and I barely had time to get the side door zipped. And she was already looking for her next meal. And she had to wait until I was ready to put her back. And she came out the top to go back. And then she just flailed around and wasn't sure where the food was. She followed the target great. The cat tried to get her, and it took her a little while to figure out where the actual food item was. She pushed it off the tongs. It fell onto the floor. She eventually got a hold of it and was able to start swallowing it. But it's rare that she's not kind of wild like this when we do a training session and when she eats. But I'm just very proud of her because she understands to follow the target and to shift in and out of her enclosure. And I really just am thankful that we're able to do that behavior. And how she does it, I guess really doesn't matter, even though she's fast and exuberant and wild about the way that she does it. She's still doing the behavior. She's shifting out of her enclosure and she's shifting back into her enclosure. And it makes life so much easier for the both of us. In contrast to Vashti, this is my corn snake Candy Corn, and she is being very cautious, whether it's because of the commotion that just went on next to her or because she sees the cats outside of her enclosure walking around. It doesn't matter. She is just quietly coming out of her hide. She's quietly approaching the target, and I am happy with that. And so that's what I'm going to reinforce. Don't need her to come out or anything. I just need her occupied while I clean her water. And she did a fantastic job. This is Hazel, our Western hognose snake, who also tests my patience sometimes with her wild behavior. Instead of just coming directly down to the target, she had to come down off the ledge, go back into that far right corner, and then sneak up behind and over her water dish as she approached the target. And she carefully creeped up to the target and earned her reinforcer. I wanted to clean her water, but instead Hazel wanted to eat near her water and use her water dish as some sort of a fort or something. I don't know. I ended up doing 3 repetitions with Hazel during this training session, and all 3 repetitions she used the water dish as an anchor. So I just cleaned it later. This is one of my California king snakes, Grogu. And actually, he's very good at target training. I don't recall ever having him do anything wild or crazy or having any issue with him during any training sessions. He just does what I ask him and he takes the target. This is my other California king snake. This is Bahari, and she's the shy one. So Grogu's very outgoing and confident, and Bahari is quite shy. And usually I just end up targeting her out of hiding somewhere. And sometimes I target her towards her enclosure threshold. This is Roberta Lincoln. She is another corn snake, and she was targeting out of her humid hide, and she is always very excited and wraps and constricts and coils her reinforcer once she has a hold of it. This is another corn snake. This is Bray Tech. Bray Tech actually always usually does a really good job too. That was a sweet and easy session. And then this is Talon. He is a corn snake, and he spends a lot of time in that sky hide, and he saw me training Bray Tech, and he saw me with everything ready, and he was ready to go. So I just targeted him, basically asking him to just look in a specific direction, and I reinforced that, and then I cleaned his water. This is Neutron, our Sonoran gopher snake, and this should look familiar because he got his very own video last week, and this footage was used in it. This footage was taken the same day that I trained and fed all the other colubrids. However, Neutron shifted into the shift container, and then subsequently later in the day I did a target training session with him where he got reinforced and hopefully had a very positive experience so that he wants to repeat it. Last but not least is our bull snake Rodney, who is also a Pituophis. So Pituophis catenifer sayi, and Neutron is a Pituophis catenifer affinis. Rodney does not target very often. We just do it every once in a while to make sure she still remembers how to do it. I do a lot of puzzle feeding with her, a lot of shift training, station training, and foraging exercises, but she did successfully target out of her enclosure and onto this repurposed bird perch, which I'm using as a shift. I did 2 repetitions on this, and then I moved her into an exercise pen where she got to explore and do a foraging exercise. So she was happy.